Okay, so I want to kind of begin this last part of today's lecture by talking specifically about how the Senate and the House of Representatives, those two halves of the bicameral legislature, how they differ. And so let's start with the House. Let's look at some fundamental differences or fundamental um, structures in the House that make a difference. So first off, obviously there's 435 members of the U.S. House of Representatives, representing 435 congressional districts scattered across the country. That's four times as large as the Senate, which has two senators for each state for a total of 100. Now, when you look at the House, because there's 435 members, there's obviously going to be a difference in power structure within that, right? If you're one out of 435, it's a little different from being one out of 100. And so, what has developed in this particular congressional body over the last 250 years is a much, much, much stronger form of leadership in the House of Representatives, where the members of the leader's party is much more loyal, and the leadership of the House and the party that controls it at the time is able to influence the votes of their members to a much greater extent. And we're going to look at that in a lot of different examples. Um, but the stronger leadership plays into what is able to get done in the House of Representatives, um, because members typically vote and act how their leadership wants them to. Because the leadership is much stronger and because they have more control, the leadership is able to um, use some of the rules that we're going to talk about in the later slides to get members of the House to kind of vote and act how they want. Because many members know that the only way that they're going to get on more powerful committees and get more seniority within the House is to basically please the House leadership. Now, this particular piece right here is one of the most fundamental differences between the U.S. House of Representatives and the Senate. And it is something that you are going to need to fully understand because it does frequently come up on the exam. Now, we're going to talk about a lot of different committees in the House and the Senate. The Senate Armed Services Committee, the House Ways and Means Committee, the Senate Finance Committee, um, Senate Intelligence Committee. Like there's all sorts of committees that members of Congress sit on. But the House Rules Committee only exists in the House of Representatives, the Rules Committee. And this fundamental difference changes the nature of both the Senate and the House. Um, there is no Senate Rules Committee, but in the House, there is a committee that basically gets to review all bills that are about to be sent to the House floor for a vote. We're going to look at the committee structure in a little bit, but basically, once bills come out of their committee and are basically moved to be voted on the floor of the House as passage into law, it first makes a pit stop in the House Rules Committee. And the House Rules Committee then reviews the bill and basically gets to set rules on the bill before it gets voted on. And so basically, the House Rules Committee is going to say, well, we're going to vote on it next Tuesday. We're going to allow 30 minutes for debate, and we're not going to allow any amendments. Or you say, and if you said, okay, we're going to vote on 30 minutes of debate with no amendments, then basically you're saying, we want this to pass in exactly its same form. We don't really want to talk about it very much, and nobody can change it. But they can also say in the House Rules Committee, we're scheduling it for next Tuesday. We're allowing unlimited debate, and people can make changes and can amend the bill on the floor. And this fundamentally changes how debate happens in the House of Representatives. If the House Rules Committee can set a certain amount of time that a bill can be discussed or talked about, um, and then it basically, as soon as that time runs out, then there has to be a vote. The Senate, however, as we're going to see, has no such thing. And so every bill that hits the Senate floor has unlimited debate. And we're going to look at what that means, but it is a fundamental difference between the House of Representatives and the Senate. And the House Rules Committee is super powerful because it can sort of single-handedly decide whether a bill is going to pass or not pass. If you allow unlimited amendments and unlimited debate, the chances of it getting passed are very low because it's going to be changed so many times before it gets voted on, that people probably are not going to vote to pass it. But if you really want to get something passed, maybe you say, and you control the House Rules Committee, let's say the Democrats control the House Rules Committee, and they want to pass this Democratic bill, they're going to say, well, we're going to vote on it tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. We're going to allow 5 minutes of debate and no amendments. And by doing that, you can effectively change the way a bill is talked about or not talked about and increase its likelihood of passing. Now, in the House of Representatives, and again, I keep saying we're going to talk about it, but committees are one of the most important parts of this chapter, and every member of Congress gets their seats on committees through appointment either by the Speaker of the House, if you are a member of the Speaker of the House's party. So the Speaker of the House, if the Republicans control the House, the Speaker is a Republican, and the Speaker will give the committee assignments to all Republican members. And so the Speaker can use that power to basically kind of um, can control members of the House, right? If the Speaker says, well, if you don't vote yes on tomorrow's bill, I'm going to take you off your very important committee, that's an incredibly harsh punishment. And we're going to look at that later. But basically, committee assignments become candy that House leadership can use in order to influence its voters to vote how they want. The Speaker of the House is the most powerful person in the entire Congress, even more so than the Senate Majority Leader. And we're going to look at that. So now let's move on to the Senate. The Senate, right, was originally, as we've talked about before, designed by the founding fathers as sort of a check on the more populist oriented House. And by populist, I mean the House is 2-year terms that represent smaller districts, and it tends to get kind of bigger characters, kind of louder personalities, more extreme views, because that sort of mirrors America. There are spots in America that are just wacky. Um, and so, the House was built to be the chamber of the people, and the Senate was built to sort of be um, the check on that, right? We know that the founding fathers both wanted a democracy but did not really trust the people. And so they built a government that both gave people power and also basically was structured in such a way as to show that they really didn't trust them. And so the Senate is kind of the more elite side of things. There's only 100 senators. By definition, one of 100, as I said, senators' seniority is much less important. They're much more equal between members. And the Senate has a lot of powers constitutionally guaranteed that you're going to need to know, because they're oftentimes used as questions dealing with checks and balances. So, for example, the Senate has the power to ratify all treaties. So, if the president negotiates, a peace treaty with a nation we are at war with, the Senate has to approve it. If the White House negotiates a treaty for environmental, like when the Obama administration negotiated the Paris Climate Accords, that had to be ratified by the Senate. The Senate also it gets to try impeach or gets to try um, officials when they're impeached, as we're seeing right now with Trump's second impeachment trial. The Senate will hold that trial, just like it did before. The Senate also confirms presidential appointments, and that's incredibly important because the president is going to nominate Supreme Court justices or Secretary of State, or Secretary of Defense, head of the CIA, head of the EPA, right? Head of the FCC, FAA, the Joint Chiefs of Staff for the Navy and the Army. All of these presidential appointments have to be approved by the Senate. And if the Senate doesn't like them or wants to play politics, the Senate can say no, and the president doesn't get who they want. So those are some very powerful checks and balances. As I said, the Senate is far more egalitarian, meaning equal, right? There's that egal word that we talked about a lot in AP World, but much more equal. Now, the majority party leaders, like the Senate Majority Leader, was formerly Mitch McConnell when the Republicans controlled it prior to a couple weeks ago. Now it's Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. But Majority Party leaders, so Senate Majority Leader, um, acts a lot like the House Rules Committee in the sense that, the Majority Party leaders get to schedule votes, but there is no rules committee to limit debate or to limit how many amendments. And so what that really means is if there is no rules committee to limit how long you can debate a bill, then in theory you could debate a bill forever. This tradition and this rule within the Senate has given rise to the Senate filibuster. And the Senate filibuster is kind of a procedural move that senators have historically been able to do where they can get up in the midst of a debate on a bill and just start talking. And they can talk for as long as they can stay standing, for as long as they want. They can control the floor, not allowing a vote to happen. This comes because the Senate has a tradition of unlimited debate. There is no rules committee to limit it, right? And so this tradition, this unlimited debate, has been used generally by minority parties to prevent the Senate from voting on a bill that the minority party doesn't want them to. It's hard to filibuster forever. I mean, there's famous examples of senators standing up and starting to read the phone book, or senators standing up and starting to read, Charles Dickens or whatever, right? Or I think there was one relatively recently where a senator actually got up and started reading Dante's Inferno, which is a piece of literature, and he stood there for like 9 hours just reading this book. Um, there's been, cases throughout history where senators will wear adult diapers, and whatnot to allow them to go. It can be hard to hold off a bill for being voted on forever, but that is oftentimes an attention-getting technique because America starts to pay attention when there is a serious Senate filibuster. How long is this guy going to go, and why is he so angry, or what's he trying to stop? And that can draw attention to a bill and allow the minority party um, to kind of influence how the American people are perceiving things. Um, you can sometimes threaten to filibuster in order to gain concessions. So the minority party can say, "Well, we're planning on filibustering this bill unless you take out this one piece on page 17, the second paragraph, or unless you move some money into something that we care about. We're going to filibuster this bill." Now, how can you end a filibuster, right? Like, how can you officially stop the filibustering of a bill when there's unlimited debate? Well, the majority party has to call for something called a cloture vote. So during the filibuster, the majority party can call a cloture vote, and if they have 60 votes to end debate, then a filibuster will be halted. That process is called cloture. Again, you need 60 members. Now, it is not often in our country's history that the majority party has 60 members, and so blocking filibusters has been historically very difficult. But if you do have 60 votes, you can initiate a cloture vote and end debate. Um, now, there is a discussion right now where the Senate, right now controlled by the Democrats, is considering eliminating the filibuster. They need 67 votes to change the rules, but there is a technicality where they can do it with a simple majority. And so I don't know all the ins and outs of it. It's a convoluted, legislative and very litigious mess. But we are going to look at on Friday and tomorrow kind of the debate that exists with the filibuster and whether or not it's a good idea to end it. And if you do end the filibuster, and you win in the short term because your party gets to kind of um, get voting on whatever they want to vote, does it hurt you in the long run? And we're going to explore that on Friday. And this is really where we're going to end today. I'll go ahead and put this question up because it's where we're going to pick up tomorrow as well. But I will see you all in class on Friday.